Fire Call, the fire safety show with Division Chief Jim Sedaris.
Hi, my name is Division Chief Jim Sedaris, and you're watching Fire Call. And this month we are all over Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, and we're spending some time out at the training center with a lot of different crews, and we're just going hazmat crazy out here. And we're going to get to a lot of your questions, send out some t-shirts, and take you behind the scenes of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue to see what's the latest and greatest news that's going on with our department. Well, this first question is from Robert. Robert lives in Berlin, Vermont. He's got a crazy question about fire hydrants. He wants to say, where did fire hydrants, how do they become referred to sometimes as plugs? Firefighters will sometimes say, catch the plug, referring to the fire hydrant. Years ago, a long time ago, before I was on the fire department, they used to have actually the pipes that would be water supply lines would be hollowed out trees. Some of those are still in some of the larger cities. They'll find these water lines that were actually trees, hollowed out trees. And what they had is they literally had a plug that would have a plug every, couple city blocks. You'd pull out the plug, the water would flow out, and you could do your bucket brigade or fill your trucks from there. So that's how fire hydrants sometimes be called fire plugs. Again, it goes way back. It's a traditional thing, and firefighters have a really long memory. They like to go back to that kind of stuff. Got some shout outs. Now, I got a big shout out apology, and I don't normally do this, but because I mispronounced a city, Dave from Australia wanted me to make sure we got his city right. And Dave sent us a shout out from Bachmanberg, Australia. So I think I got it right. Here's email, Dave. I did my best, and the shirt is in the mail. I hope it fits you. We got a shout out from Kyle. Kyle lives in Marinette, Wisconsin, and he wants a shout out to the Grover Portersfield Fire Department in Wisconsin. And we hope they've been watching the show a long time. This shout out has been sitting around for several months. Also a shout out to the Fort Pierre Fire Department from Patrick, and Patrick lives in Fort Pierre, South Dakota. Well, I hope all you firefighters are having a good time watching our show. Need to sit back, relax, tell the kids to be quiet, turn off that BlackBerry, grab some popcorn, and spend some time with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. This question is an oldie but a goodie, and it comes from Jay in Sacramento, and Jay is a retired fire chief. And he wants to know about how do we produce Fire Call and then serve it up on the internet. And every month we get tons of questions, and these are all the questions we have this month coming in from Fire Call. We come into the Nerve Center. This is the Fire Call Nerve Center right here. And we sit and go through all the questions, pick out the good ones, the ones we're going to use, the ones that are appropriate. Sometimes we have questions that are more wintertime questions, and we'll put those off, and then we sort through all our shout-outs. And I'm going to bring in our producer slash editor slash director slash knows everything about everything, Rich Murphy. And Rich is the man who runs Fire Call. So Rich, what do you think?
Basically, like you said, we have literally dozens of questions that we get every month. We come in here once a month, start filtering through them all, and we go through and figure out which questions we think are going to be appropriate for this show. If there's a theme to the show, we kind of go with that. Other times it's just a pure question and answer show, and we figure out stuff for like Fire Institute of Technology, Truck of the Month, if there's a question that revolves around that.
Pop quiz.
Pop quiz is another good one that we love to have questions for. And from there, we just go out, we contact the different fire stations, see if there's who's on, who's doing what training, use all that kind of great footage that we get from the different stations. Plus, we use cover footage that I've been able to grab over the years, working for the city now, going to all the different fires. There's a lot of great questions that we have that, with the cover footage that we put over top of it, really adds to what, the question is all about.
And now our questions are getting, it used to be we were hoping to get 1 or 2 a month, and now they're just coming in daily. So it's a tribute to your good work as a producer slash director slash editor slash all those other things.
Exactly. And after, like I said, after we get done shooting the entire show, we try to shoot it usually in one day. And then I take it back, start doing all the editing, edit it down at our station, try to get on the air actually the next day usually after we shoot the show.
How much footage do you think we shoot and then edit out, would you say? Because we shoot it pretty much as live, which means
Absolutely.
what?
We shoot it as live, meaning basically what you see is, I mean, it's a one-camera setup, very simple. I mean, we've had to turn the camera on myself here. We don't have another videographer. We don't have a sound man or anything. It's just...
People are going to think we do. 2
microphones and a camera, basically. And so it's just me behind the camera, you in front of the camera, asking the questions to the firefighters. Like I said, when we get back and edit it, it's mostly what we've shot is what ends up on the air. Very simple. And the reason we try and keep it simple is that we can turn it around very quickly that way.
Sure.
We can get these shows out at least, about every 5 weeks is what we kind of hope for.
And then we put them on the city website, we put it on YouTube, and we're looking at another website, grouper.com, so that we can get as many people watching as we can.
Exactly. We give it to our webmasters. They take care of it. You take care of some of the web stuff, too, yourself, and try and get it out there to the masses.
Great. Well, we better get back to work.
Absolutely. Let's get on to the next question.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks. And thanks, Jay. This question comes from Matt in Fayetteville, Pennsylvania, and he wants to know, what does RIT stand for? R-I-T, RIT teams. RIT teams stand for Rapid Intervention Teams, sometimes called RIC, Rapid Intervention Crews. What RIC teams are is they're set up to save the firefighters. If we have a building collapse, someone falls through the floor, we activate those RIT teams, and they go in and rescue the firefighters. What the RIT teams have is they have all their own equipment. They have equipment so they don't have to go looking for it if something goes wrong. It's all laid out right in front of them, specialized equipment. They're all trained how to react very rapidly if we have firefighter problems, which could be firefighter falling through the floor, building collapse, any other type of emergency. They're ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. So, Matt, I hope that answers your questions about RIT teams. We have 3 questions, all kind of dealing with the same issue. The first one is from, I hope I have your name right, Lavy in Great Neck, New York. And the question is, does each rig have designating seating arrangements for all the positions, such as someone to have the irons, hydrant, pre-connects? And we also have a similar question from Brent in New Canton, Ohio, and also from Andy in Plainsville, Illinois. And they all kind of want to know, how do we staff our trucks? I have Captain Randy Farland, and Randy Farland's been on the department, how many years, Randy?
It's almost 17.
And you're a captain. How do you run, we run 4-person trucks.
Correct. The driver, of course, drives the truck. And in this seat here...
Front seaters?
...is where the captain sits.
Okay.
He's...
Pull down that computer screen once.
We get information on this about our call that comes up on our MDC. As far as any updates en route, they'll show up on our MDC. And also the captain's job is to use the map book to help, find a hydrant once we get close if we're going to a fire, and direct the driver in, the best way to get there.
And then set up the initial command of what your initial strategy and tactics are going to be for the call?
Correct. The captain's is instant command once he gets on scene.
Okay. And then for the backseaters?
The 2 firefighters sitting back here, and they're assigned either the firefighter or the medic, and it doesn't matter which side they sit on. They're just assigned those duties for that day or for that hitch or however
they know what they're supposed to be doing. So, okay, if you're going on a medical call, how's that work?
The medic grabs the AED, and he's the one who has patient care, and
okay.
The other firefighter will assist with whatever he needs, along with, depending on the call, the driver, the captain will assist on whatever he needs.
So even on an EMS call, all 4 people have a specific task?
Correct.
Now we go to a fire. How do they swap out on roles for fires?
Well, one of them will be designated in the morning who's going to pull to the hydrant. If we have a working fire and we pull a line to the hydrant, and the other firefighter knows he's going to be going in with the captain once another truck shows up to set up RIT, and we'll be ready to go in.
So we don't have a bunch of confusion. Everybody knows their job and they just snap to.
Right. I mean, it's all set up, either in the morning that day, or most of them do it by month.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, Randy, and I hope that answers all your questions on how we staff our trucks. 2 great questions all about nozzles, and the first one comes from Paul in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and he wants to know, how do firefighters decide between stack tips, cellar nozzles, fog nozzles, and foam nozzles, and what are the advantages of each? Well, I have with me the guy that knows all the answers, Captain Todd Lowe. Todd, I see you brought your own nozzle with you.
I bought a set of stack tips with me to show how we use the different nozzles for different types of fires.
So explain, because some people aren't going to know, what's it mean when it's stacked?
Okay. When they refer to stack tips, the selection of the nozzle is determined upon the size of the fire and your ability to penetrate deep into the fire to cool the fuel. The stack tips here, the advantages you have behind stack tips is it creates a solid stream. This solid stream has better reach and penetration to get deep into the fire for well burning. Usually they use them in defensive fire attacks.
So large master stream nozzles.
Large
we're
master
just going to
stream.
cool it down and
Correct.
surround and drown, basically.
With stack tips here, you have the ability to control the determination based on the size of the tips, and as you can see, these tips, you can change them based on the size of the fire. Here's an 1 3/8" tip. An example for this would be at the same pressure, at 80 psi, this tip flows 502 gallons per minute. If I increase it and I can take each one of these tips off, at this one here, at the same pressure, 80 psi, I can flow 1,063 gallons per minute. The determination is based on the size of the fire and the available water.
And then you're going to be looking at reach is going to be different.
The reach is going to be different based on the tips. The smaller the tips, the better reach you're going to have.
Basically, these all stack upon each other, and it works. Now, leaving the stack tips, talk to us about, because they also want to know about fog nozzles. What's the difference between a fog nozzle? Because a fog nozzle is like a big garden hose. You can make it wide pattern or narrow. Why isn't a straight stream on a fog nozzle the same as a solid?
The advantages that you have behind a fog nozzle is that it creates a protective cover for you, and it also divides your fire stream into smaller particles. It's used for interior fires. When you go into a room and what you do is the finer you divide the water particles, the more ability it has to absorb the heat. It turns to steam, and when that steam helps us to put the fire out using less water.
So now this one, obviously, you can change the tip, and you can see right here where.
Yeah, you can change the setting on this here to what we call a straight stream or a fog stream, and that fog stream creates a pattern that's wide enough, and the wider the fog stream, the more finely divided particles you have of water. The disadvantages you have is that the wider the fog stream, the less reach you're going to have, but it works well for protection up close or in confined fires when you're entering a single room and contents fire.
And talking about nozzles, there's another question from Amanda. Amanda lives in Sioux Falls and wants to know, how do you decide between using water and foam? And talking about foam, Todd, your favorite little play device?
The air aspirating attachment that goes on the end of our nozzles.
And that does what?
What this does is that as you attach the nozzle to this nozzle happens to clamp on right here, and as water flows through the end here, it pulls in air, and the more air you add to it, the thicker the foam blanket is going to be.
So foam is getting pumped through the hose.
Yeah, the foam comes from the truck as it's pumped through, and as I get foam through here, the concentration of foam is the same whether I use this or this, but my ability to add air to it, very similar to dish soap. When you add dish soap to water and you churn it up, it creates more bubbles. And we're trying to do the same thing here, is the more bubbles we can create, the thicker the foam blanket, the better ability we have to control fires. And when we use foam, we have two different types. We have a Class A and Class B foam. Class A is going to be similar to any ordinary combustible fires. We use Class A for residential structure fires, and the determination between Class A and B is based on the type of fire we have.
So what happens when you get to, now she's asking, how do you decide between water and foam? We get a big gas fire, what are we going to use?
Our determination between using water and foam is the type of fire that we have. You can use foam on a Class A or a residential fire, and the benefits behind that is that it increases surface tension, which allows the water to stay stuck to the walls a little bit better, and it helps cool it down. If it's a Class B fire or a gas fire, then we use Class B foam, and we want to produce a better foam blanket for fire suppression.
Great. Well, Todd, you've asked a short question and get a longer answer, and you've done a great job. I appreciate it, Todd. This question is all about communications, and it's from Mark in Dunham, Connecticut, and he wants to know about our two-way radio systems. Well, we're very fortunate at Sioux Falls Fire Rescue because every firefighter, from the newest person all the way up to chief, has their own radio. And the advantage of that is we can talk right away to everybody on the scene, and everyone on the scene can get updates of what's going on. The radios, a lot of firefighters will carry their radios. They'll have a pocket in their coat. They might have it strapped to their gear on a fire call, and everyone has their own call sign, so we can instantly talk to anybody on the scene. Works out really good. A lot of departments don't have that. They might have one radio for everyone on the truck. So it makes yelling and screaming and a lot of pointing going on. We're very fortunate. Now, another question comes from Josh, and Josh lives in Chaluta, Florida, and he wants to know, back in the old days, that's probably when I started, Josh, thanks very much, if a firefighter was in trouble, the rumor was that they'd throw their helmet out the window to signal help. That's partially true, Josh. We didn't have all these radios back then. If you did get in trouble, one way to let firefighters outside the building know you were in trouble was to throw your helmet out. If you'd walk around the building and you saw a helmet on the ground, the first thing you do is you look up because it might be there on the 3rd floor and we can get those firefighters out. I haven't heard of it done recently, but back when I started, that was a pretty common thing, was if you got in trouble, find a window, throw your helmet out and start yelling really loud. Back in the times before the advanced radio communication systems, the masks we had were a little different. They weren't as dependable as they are now, and you could easily get into problems. So Josh, I hope that answered your question. We always have to have the stuff that happened in the old days still put back in the memory banks because you might have to use it again in a fire today. This question comes from Kevin, and Kevin lives in Sioux Falls, and he says, Jim, I've seen fire trucks going red lights and siren down the street and suddenly shutting them off and drive with the flow of traffic. Are they just practicing or what? Hey, Kevin, here's what's going on. They've been dispatched to a fire or an EMS call, and then often we're updated by Metro Communications on the radio to say maybe they can't find a patient, maybe the person's left the scene, maybe it's downgraded, the first units on the scene found out it's not a fire and they can handle it. And rather than having our trucks continue going red lights and siren, which poses a difficulty for traffic and puts our trucks and people at danger in an accident, they shut down and then go with the flow of the traffic. So they're not practicing, Kevin. They're just going with the flow of the traffic because it's no longer an emergency situation. We don't want our trucks running red lights and siren when they don't need to. Puts everybody at risk, puts our fire trucks at risk, our people at risk, and also puts the public. So when we're running code 3, it's because it's emergency. This question comes from Chad, and Chad lives in Wildwood Crest, New Jersey. And he wants to know about special operations. What kind of special things do we do in addition to fire rescue? And this is one of them. Hazmat's getting to be a bigger part of the fire service, and we got Captain Todd Lowe back with us to tell us kind of what's going on right here. Now, Todd, what is the simulation here that we're doing?
Today's training is on our hazmat teams, and they're practicing suiting up in the appropriate level of clothing, and they're running through what we call a decon line. The purpose of the decon line is to eliminate all potential possibilities for contamination on the entry personnel.
So this would be that they're coming out of the hazmat call.
That's
now.
Right.
They're contaminated with some type of chemical or some type of contaminant, and this is going through the process. Now, what's with the kiddie swimming pools?
Well, the purpose of the pools is that if they have a product on them, it's the intent of this process is to contain the contaminated water, because once the product goes into the tubs, it's contained within here, and then we pump it over to a containment basin that allows us to control the product so it doesn't run off back into the environment.
One of our big concerns now is not only saving lives, saving property, but we really have to be concerned about
the environment.
You bet.
Yeah,
and that's going to be a bigger part when we start looking at some of these contaminants that we don't know what's going to happen long term. So they go through each of these phases. Essentially, they're going through 3 different pools. And is it different procedures, or is it just basically doing the same thing over and over to get the contaminant off?
The purpose of the 3 stages, and at the end they will take personal showers to ensure that they are totally free from any possible contamination, is that the first stage is used to get rid of the bulk of the product.
The gross decon?
And as they go from one stage to the next, the contamination gets less and less until it's a point where it's safe for them to take off their protective clothing. Because we don't want to have them take off their protective clothing while still being contaminated.
And this has to be done in fairly synchronized manner because they're all on air right now.
That's correct. And there's a time factor to this. The suits that they are wearing, their ability or the length of time that they spend in them suits is determined upon the amount of air that they have available. So if they run out of air, the suits become ineffective and their protection is decreased.
The tanks that they're using on hazmat, longer duration air supply tanks?
Yes, they are longer duration than our standard structural firefighting
and they're
SCBAs.
What are they rated at?
1 hour.
But under heavy use, that gets to be more of an issue as far as
time-wise? What they're rated at is dependent upon what their workload is. If they're going to do a lot of strenuous activity, the time could be considerably less. It's their responsibility also to monitor how much air they're using and to ensure they have enough time and enough air to get through the decon line.
Normally we do a lot of the practicing doing the task of hazmat. We've done it on the show before where we're doing tasks. This is one of the few times where we've actually looked at deconning. Is that going to be a bigger issue now of deconning our people when they're done?
It's a huge issue that we have to be concerned about, and our goal is to make sure that when they get completed with decontamination that they don't take any product back with them to the station, exchange that product between other personnel, or even bring it home to their families.
Great. Well, Todd, thanks a lot. That answers a lot of our questions. Hope you enjoyed the show. Had a lot of cool stuff, and as hot as it is out here today, this is firehouse hot. I'd like to get one of those little kiddie pools myself and just hose myself off. Got a few shout-outs to wrap up the show. This shout-out, I want to go to this fire station. This shout-out is from Mark, and Mark's from Jacksonville Fire Department. He wants a shout-out to the Jacksonville Fire Rescue Department, Station 27, also known as the Asylum. That's where I need to have my fire headquarters at. This shout-out goes to Mike from Spirit Lake, and he wants a shout-out to the Spirit Lake Volunteer Fire Department, Spirit Lake, Iowa, not too far away from here. And from Thomas in Moorhead, he wants a shout-out to the Fargo Fire Department in Fargo, North Dakota, another cold place. And our last shout-out, and this is kind of a sad shout-out, and it, firefighting is a very dangerous job, and we have a lot of fun here, but minute to minute, some of the people you see here might not be around, and this shout-out comes from Jeff, and Jeff lives in Pleasant Hill, California. He wants a shout-out to the Contra Costa County Fire Rescue Department in California. They just lost 2 firefighters in a flashover during rescue operations. Firefighting is a very dangerous job, one of the most dangerous jobs in the country, and we really appreciate all these firefighters out there. And we send our heartfelt sympathies out to California and also to the 9 firefighters that died in Charleston, South Carolina. And right after we roll the credits, every month we list all the firefighters that died in the line of duty, and every month we're losing a dozen or so firefighters. So our hearts go out to all you guys that are doing your best. And the men and women of the fire service are some of the bravest people in the country, and we're just really glad to be part of that. My name is Division Chief Jim Sedaris, and you've been watching Fire Call.